We're in Berry Hill in Nashville, AEA Ribbon Mic Sessions. This morning joining us, singer-songwriter extraordinaire Tony Arata. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you so very much for having me, Julie.
Thank you so much for joining us. You started out in a shrimping village, you said, down in Georgia?
Yes.
Made your way up to Nashville?
Well, my wife and I, Jamie, when we first got married, we lived in a little place called Thunderbolt, Georgia, which is on the way from Savannah out to Tybee Island, where I grew up. Everybody has their story about how they wound up in Nashville, and I literally came home from band practice one day, and our landlord was sitting on the front stoop of our apartment, and I asked him if everything was okay, and he said, "Yeah, I just need to see the apartment before y'all leave." And I said, "Well, where are we going?" And he said, "Well, your wife gave 30 days notice and said you're moving to Nashville." So I, of course, asked if I was included in that, and but anyway, so 30 days later, we were Nashvillians. We had a discussion over the dining room table. She looked at me and she said, "You know, we can be broke anywhere." And she said, "So if you're gonna continue to write songs, we can go be broke in Nashville, where maybe
Wow.
just maybe somebody might actually hear some of these songs that you're writing." So.
That's a wild story.
Oh well, no, but that's literally the way it happened, and we, of course, like almost everybody that comes here, you don't have any contacts. You maybe have enough money to last for a couple of months, and then you just figure it out from there. There is no roadmap, and there is no how-to book. It's just.
No.
And when we got here, the first thing we did was we went around to every open mic show there was here in town, and. You might sing a song in the wee hours of the night. And might be 3 people there, might not be anybody there, but it was a very chance meeting, because one of the places I played was the Douglas Corner Cafe, and that's where I met Garth. I mean, he had just moved to town the same week we had moved here. He had moved from Oklahoma the same week we had moved from Georgia.
Wow.
And so we were both, obviously had nothing going on, but
Sure.
Had no idea either that what was waiting. I remember back during one of these Zoom concerts, I went and at the Bluebird, and I wandered around the back, and they have a bunch of Polaroid pictures up on the wall of people who were long timers there.
Yeah.
And it was just a reminder. It's like, I remember those people, and then when you get to go back in there and there's a full house, and you get to be around the people again, it's almost a reminder that you remember what it is you came here to do, which was the inspiration for this song.
What's the title of the song?
This is a song called "When I Remember You." Half-empty bottle and a handful of pictures. Most of these evenings, that's about how I be found, running full throttle down some page of my history, trying hard to get back to where I once thought I was bound. But these old Polaroids I'm holding might be as close as I'll ever be. But when I remember you, for a moment I almost remember me. You hold them near, and somehow you still can't find them. It's like they're hidden in some myriad concealed, but held to a mirror, and you'll see right where they're hiding. And just like magic, it's all suddenly revealed. Well, you're that proper lens I'm using, the sweeter light that lets me see that when I remember you, for a moment I almost remember me. In the flash of a long gone minute, sweet forever's there, and I'm right there in it. Yes, sir. I believe because I've seen it. Some I can see 'cause I believe that when I remember you for a moment, I almost remember me. When I remember you for a moment, I almost remember me.
That is beautiful.
Thank you very much.
There's such poignancy and precision in your lyrics. I mean, do you feel you draw some of that from your journalism background? I mean, just every word is so just like an arrow, right?
I tell you, I didn't learn much in college. My grades were proof of that. But I did get drilled into my head, when you're writing an article, there's only the lead is ultimately important, and you have to kind of let the reader know where you're going right from the outset. And then when you apply that to songs, there's so few words in most songs. They all ought to, carry a certain amount of weight. Johnny Mercer was one of my heroes, as was Hal David. I mean, just great lyricist that, that if you're going to, I'm not much of a musician, and I didn't come here to be an artist. I just came here to write songs. So I've always, first thing I want to do is just read the lyrics to a song, before I even hear it. They mean so much to me.
Is that your process generally, that you start with lyrics then?
Well, I start with a title and always, and what's the old adage, you have to know where something ends before you can start it. So you kind of have to know the story, and then you kind of work backwards is the way I do it. Okay. But I'm gonna do a song. This is I'm very honored. I got to do a thing for Roger's wife, Erica, some years ago, and she said, I want you to do my favorite song. And I said, well, what is that? And she said, it was Here I Am. It's a song that Patty Loveless did some years ago. And there again, so very grateful not only for the songs, but for the friendships that they lead you to. I mean, Patty and Emery I've known them since we got here. When we came here, she was just getting started, I remember very well hearing, If My Heart Had Windows, the Dallas Frazier classic on the radio. And then last October, we went and saw her get inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. And she's always been one of my all-time favorite people, and certainly what a great artist. It's a song called Here I Am. Don't do it, darling. Don't you dare look in there. You said you didn't want to see me, but you've been looking for me everywhere. You know that you're gonna find me if you keep on drinking fast. 'Cause honey, I'm right there waiting on you at the bottom of your glass. And here I am. Here I am. I'm in the bourbon and the water that burn you just like a brand. Here I am. It ain't working, my darling. Hard as you may try, you keep hearing those words you told me. in every man's goodbye. You know that you're just one step from another one being gone. I know I've seen them all unravel, 'cause I've been watching you all along. And here I am, here I am. I'm in every lie you're hearing that burn you just like a brand. Here I am. Darling, I got over you passing me over a long, long time ago. And my pride was so much stronger when I was younger. Now I would rather have you know that here I am, here I am. I still carry that flame for you, burning me like a brand. Here I am. My thanks to Patty Loveless.
That's another one that just right to the point. I mean, like you said, everything about it.
Well, here's a funny story about that song. You know, songwriters lead a very anonymous life. I mean, you're lucky if anybody knows any of your songs, but they certainly couldn't pick you out of a lineup, you know. And when that song was on the charts, it was nearing. It was the #1 song for Patty, and so it was being played quite frequently. And I remember going into a convenience store and waiting in line to check out, and there were 2 ladies in front of me, and the song came on the radio, and I was just standing there, and one lady looked at the other and she said, "Have you heard this song?" She said, "I love Patty, but this song just makes me mad as hell." And I said, I was just chuckling to myself, and she said, "Why did she take him back? You know, if he broke her heart that bad, why did she take him back?" So they were getting more and more animated and furious the longer the song went on. I was just standing there, and they turned around and looked at me, and they could see I was chuckling, and they said, "What's so funny?" I said, "Oh, nothing. I'm with y'all. I mean, I agreed wholeheartedly. You know, to hell with that guy. You know, I mean, it's like, so nobody even knows that you're standing there. You're the one responsible for making them so mad." But
And of course, I thought like, well, yeah, you're chuckling because you're laughing all the way to the bank.
yeah, no, I was just grateful that, you know, but that's the difference between, you know, songwriting and being an artist. I mean, the artists don't have the luxury of being anonymous.
Yeah, fair enough.
And songwriters can lead a fairly normal life.
So then in that early part of your songwriting career, you know, writing for others, is it mostly people that you already knew that they were then covering your songs? Like, how did it lead to like Garth covering The Dance?
Well, the Dance actually was one of the first songs I wrote when we moved here. Pardon me. And I had met Garth, and we became friends, and we wound up doing shows together. Not those kind of shows. I'm talking about like open mic shows or early shows.
You didn't have pyrotechnics in the early days?
Oh, no. This
Okay.
was long before he was known by one name. And but I had just written this, and we did an early show at the Bluebird Cafe, which was a big deal for us because back then, I mean, we were just getting started, and so to get to play at the Bluebird and do an early show was a big deal. And so I had just, I can tell you this much, Julie, I can tell you who was in the room with us.
Wow.
I mean, that's how few people were there. The performers outnumbered the audience that day. But it was me and Garth and Liz Hingber, who went on to write a bunch of songs for Reba,
Wow.
and Mark Irwin, who was the bartender. And, you know, he took us came and walked up on stage and sang his set. But anyway, when I played the song, Garth came up and said, if I ever get a record deal, I'd love to do that song. And which was a big deal to have one of your peers like something you had written. But
of course,
at the time, this is the truth. I mean, I was telling you, I was loading trucks at UPS, and Garth was selling boots at Boot Country. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like a record deal was imminent, to say the least. And sure enough, 3 years later, he stood on that same Bluebird stage and sang a showcase for Capitol Records. And next day called and said, is that song still available? And it was. It meant something to Garth from the very first time he heard it. And he did what all great artists do, is he made it his song. He made it his own. Matter of fact, when he played me the record, the first time I wasn't really sure I had made the record. And when the last song came on, I didn't recognize it as being my song.
Wow. And
I didn't think I'd made it, but they made such a masterful record of it.
Yeah.
Which is such a hard thing to do. As I sit in front of these mics and I think about it, great songs don't always translate into great records.
That's true.
I mean, the recording process is so important. The arrangement is so important. The players are so important. And sometimes they get lost. I mean, and sometimes they get made more than they ever were. And such was the case with the dance. I'll do that because it was the perfect example for me as a songwriter. It taught me the two lessons I needed to know most of all before continuing in the career or trying to continue a career as a songwriter. Well, the first thing you have to know is when you're not done with a song. And this song had a completely different set of lyrics than it does now. And I always liked the melody, but I knew the words weren't anything. Mm-hmm. And so if those words had remained, I wouldn't be sitting here with you all today talking. But I saw a scene in a movie that it was so poignant to me that I came home and wrote these lyrics the next day in a matter of half an hour, because, like I said, when you know how a song ends, you know where it's going, you know where to start it, and then you can write it very quickly if you do. And the other thing it taught me was when you have to know when you are done with a song. Because the reason this song was turned down by everybody for those 3 years was it doesn't have a bridge. And so, being new and having nothing going on, if they wanted a bridge, by God, I wrote about 20 of them. And but every time I did, it's the only thing I can liken it to is when you ride down a street and you see a house and then you see an addition onto that house, and you know that addition was built by a bunch of drunk sons-in-laws or brother-in-laws or whatever. It's like it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't go with the rest of the song. Garth told me, he said I really appreciate the fact that it doesn't. It's just verse chorus out. It's like said what it needed to say and that's it. Nothing more. Looking back on the memory of the dance we shared beneath the stars above, when for a moment all the world was right. How could I have known that you'd ever say goodbye? And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. holding you, and I held everything for a moment. Now wasn't I the king? But if I'd only known how that king would fall, hey, now who's to say? You know, I might have changed it all. So now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
Wow. It doesn't need that bridge. For sure.
Well, if they decide to do a reissue of it, I've got about 40 of them laying around, so we can put one in.
Well, with the technology now, you could have, the listener here, pick your own bridge.
Yeah, pick your own bridge, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my gosh.
Would you mind playing us a current song that you're writing or anything? I mean, I honestly, play us another song, anything you want to, but...
I'm going to play one more song here.
Okay,
Nobody writes thinking that they're going to get a hit, or nobody writes thinking it's a number one song. And I think the truest songs are the ones that they don't need any other validation. I don't know that this song will ever be recorded. Can't say that it will, but I can say that it was one of the best friends I had for the longest time. Just walking around with it in absolutely no hurry to finish it, because I so enjoyed its company. Well, I wish I knew just half the things I used to swear to everyone I did. With that cheap veneer of hell, I ain't afraid of nothing that behind us safely hid. Until loneliness and failure and true sorrow helped to peel layer after layer off this hard shell to reveal some humility that I found to get you places you can't get in being bolder. Wiser I don't know about, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting older. Well, I've run my mouth so much that I can't hardly take my own voice anymore. It all sounds so familiar, like I've heard it all about 1,000 times before. But even after all my words and all my rambling on, every time I think about some blessed loved one that is gone, man, I could fill 1,000,000 pages with 1,000,000 things that I wish to God I'd told them. Wiser I don't know about, but I'm pretty sure I'm getting older. Well, it'll drop you where you're standing, son, when you grab on to that one paralyzing fact. There are probably less miles waiting down the road than there are those you can't have back. So you try to neutralize that fear by making solemn vows. You start swearing this, pledging that. For all I know, it just comes down to trying to make the most out of whatever little bit that you're still holding, and leave the rest where it already is, back over your shoulder. and just be forever grateful for the chance of getting older. Thank you so much for having
Tony
me. Tony
Arata, it was such an honor and pleasure to have you here and
You're
just to
very
meet
kind.
you. I mean,
Oh,
it's-
you're very kind. I wish you all success with y'all's endeavors.
well, thank you so much. I look forward to having a quarter of a drink with you up in Sundance one of these days.